My foster sister stormed into my graduation ceremony and screamed that I didn't deserve to be a doctor. My mother stood behind her, holding up a giant sign that read, "Family comes first." The entire auditorium turned to look at me, as if I had just committed a crime. That's how the day I received my white coat began, not with applause or flowers, but with public humiliation. No one ever told me that earning a medical degree might come at the cost of running away from your own family. I was standing backstage at the University of Texas Medical School in Austin, heart pounding like it was about to explode. The white coat I was about to wear had been hidden in my best friend Lena's closet for days. I wasn't shaking from nerves, I was shaking from fear that they would show up. And then Lena whispered, "They're here." I didn't need to look. Amber's voice, my foster sister's, echoed through the main hall. "Rachel doesn't get to leave this family." She was wearing a bright red cocktail dress like she was heading to a party, but acting like I owed her my entire life. She charged at security like a linebacker trying to shove her way through the doors. Behind her stood my mother, still, silent, holding a plastic protest-style sign above her head. She stared me down through the crowd, her eyes cold as ice, furious, and somehow confident. The kind of confidence that says, "You owe me." And all I could think was, how did it come to this? I used to believe I could fix everything, help Amber heal, keep the family together, be the obedient daughter. But then came the nights I found crushed pills in my food, the acceptance letters ripped to pieces, years of learning how not to shine too brightly so she wouldn't snap. Today, I refuse to stay silent. I planned everything like a military operation, changed the ceremony venue, hid my clothes, coordinated with campus security, alerted the dean's office ahead of time. All I wanted was one peaceful day, but they still showed up. And now I had just seconds left before my name would be called on stage, and everything would come crashing down. I wasn't always afraid of Amber. There was a time I truly wanted to call her my sister. Amber came into our lives from foster care when I had just turned 15. Mom told me we'd have someone new in the house, a girl my age who had been through a lot. "Rachel," she said, "I need you to help her adjust, okay? You'll be a good example for her." I nodded. No hesitation, not even a sliver of doubt. Amber showed up at our two-story home in suburban San Antonio with a ripped backpack and unreadable eyes. She didn't smile. She didn't cry. She just scanned the house like she was calculating how fast she could escape. I tried to talk to her, show her around, tell her about school and how much I loved biology. She barely responded, just a nod here and there, her eyes still ice cold. We shared a room. I gave her the bottom bunk, cleared my books off the shelf, even took down all my awards and certificates because Mom said, "Don't make Amber feel inferior." So I did everything Mom asked. I tried. I really tried. Until the day I won the regional science fair. I came home beaming, trophy in hand, full of pride. The first thing I did was find Amber. I wanted to show her, not to brag, but because I thought, if she saw how hard I worked, maybe she'd be inspired. Maybe she'd start to believe in good things, too. Amber looked at the trophy for about 3 seconds. Then she yanked it from my hand and threw it at my head. The sound of metal hitting the wall, shattering. Amber screamed, "You don't deserve this!" Then she dropped to the floor, hugged her knees, and started sobbing. I froze. Mom came running, not to check the blood trickling down my forehead, but to kneel beside Amber. "Rachel!" she yelled. I told you not to flaunt things in front of her. I wanted to protest, to scream. I wasn't flaunting anything. But I didn't say a word. I just stood there. And for the first time, I felt truly alone in my own home. After that, everything felt like a nightmare on repeat. Anytime I achieved something, a perfect grade, a small scholarship, a compliment from a teacher, Amber destroyed it. She tore up my textbooks, smashed my laptop, snapped the microscope I saved up for months to buy. And Mom? She always said the same thing. Amber's been through so much. You're stronger. It's your job to help her heal. But how do you heal someone who uses their pain like a weapon? At some point, I don't even know when, I started living in secret, hiding my report cards, studying at night, forcing myself not to smile too much. I trained myself to become the most acceptable version of me, just to avoid Amber's next explosion. And Mom, she wasn't blind. She saw everything. But she chose not to see. I grew up in someone else's shadow. Someone who was always forgiven, no matter who they hurt. That's when I realized I would never be a priority in this house. I was just the backdrop, so someone else could stand on it and be called the poor, broken victim. I wish that trophy to the head had been the one and only time, but really it was just the opening act. After that, Amber started to change. Not in a good way. She became quieter, sharper, and, more than anything, scarier. But the scariest part wasn't Amber. It was my mom, who stopped seeing any of it as a problem. She treated it like something expected, like it was the price I, the biological daughter, had to pay to keep the peace in our home. I still remember the day I got a small scholarship for a pre-med summer program, just a few workshops at a local university. But to me, a girl from the suburbs, it was my first open door. I didn't hang the letter on my wall. I didn't tell Mom. I didn't even let myself smile too big. But Amber still found out. I came home to see the letter ripped to pieces, stuffed into the bathroom sink. I went to Mom, hands trembling, holding the shredded paper. She just sighed, not even surprised, and said, "Rachel, she's been through a lot. You have to be understanding. Don't make her feel less than." I was speechless, not because I was angry, but because for the first time I felt something heavy settle in my chest. It wasn't just about losing that letter. It was about losing my right to feel joy, to be proud. From there, Amber leveled up. I lost count of how many times she accidentally spilled water on my laptop. How many notebooks disappeared days before exams. How she slashed my white coat right before my first hospital rotation. Every time I stayed silent, not because I was scared, but because I knew nothing would change. Mom would just default to her line, "She needs healing," and I'd be pushed aside again. So I learned to hide everything. I stuffed my textbooks into old shoe boxes and slid them under my bed. I carried my files on a portable hard drive, studied at the library until closing, posted nothing online, shared no achievements, left no trace for Amber to follow. My life became a covert operation, a silent survival mission, right in the middle of my own home. And the most painful part? I started to wonder, was I actually flaunting things? Was I the one in the wrong? Amber didn't have to hit me again, because Mom and her silence did it for her. With gentle words that cut deeper than any slap ever could. I used to think Amber just broke things. But then one day I realized she was capable of much more. Colder, crueler. It was senior year of high school. I had just received my acceptance letter from the University of Texas Medical School in Dallas, a highly competitive, prestigious program. I'd spent 4 years fighting for that spot. I remember the moment I got the letter. No one was home. I opened it in my room, hands shaking. And when I saw the words, "We are pleased to congratulate you," I cried. But not because I was happy, because I was terrified. I knew that if Amber found out, everything would fall apart. So I hid the letter, tucked it inside an old biology book. No posting, no sharing, no putting it on the wall. And still, she found out. 3 days later, I came home from my shift at the pharmacy. The kitchen was eerily quiet. Dinner was sitting on the table, left by Mom, like always. I lifted the lid and smelled something off. A faint, metallic scent. Nothing overpowering, but not right. I leaned closer and my chest tightened. Mixed into the sauce, barely visible, was a fine white powder. I'd read about it in textbooks. The smell was almost identical to rat poison. I didn't eat. I sealed the container and walked straight to Amber's room. She was sketching, pretending like nothing had happened. I placed the food in front of her, picked up the fork, and said through gritted teeth, "What the hell is this, Amber?" She looked at me and then laughed. Not awkwardly, not nervously, but like I was some kind of joke. Mom came upstairs just then. She saw me holding the container, clearly upset, and immediately snatched it from my hands. "Rachel, why are you accusing her? Maybe the food went bad. Don't be dramatic." I pointed at the powder. "If I hadn't recognized that smell, I could have eaten it. I could have ended up in the ER. And you don't even care." Mom frowned. But instead of worrying about me, she turned to Amber, who was now giggling, then suddenly covering her face, sobbing like she was the real victim. Mom pulled her into a hug, then turned to me with ice in her eyes. "Don't push her away. She's finally doing better. Don't ruin that." That night, I didn't sleep. I didn't eat. I just stared at the ceiling for hours. And for the first time, I was truly afraid of the people who lived under the same roof as me. The next morning, I told Mom, "Amber is not coming anywhere near my dorm in Dallas. Not one step." She looked at me like I'd just betrayed the family and said, "If you refuse to help your sister, then don't expect any financial support from me." I took a deep breath. "Then I'll take out loans. At least that way I'll be alive long enough to pay them back." After the night, I realized I'd nearly been poisoned. Something in me changed. No more confusion. No more hoping my mom would finally see the injustice. No more praying Amber would wake up one day and be different. Every bit of faith I had in family, in unconditional love, was gone. All that remained was survival instinct. I started planning my escape. Not the wait for the right time kind of plan, the kind of plan you make when you're trying to get out of a dangerous place alive. First, I removed everything related to UT Med School from my bedroom. Acceptance letter, transcripts, essays, all packed into a small box, locked and handed over to Lena, my best friend. I trusted her more than anyone. She didn't ask questions. She just looked at me, eyes sad, and said, "I get it." I hid my white coat too, the one I used to treasure, inside Lena's closet. I couldn't risk it getting cut, burned, or accidentally ruined. I started looking for off-campus housing near the university. Dorms were too easy to track. Through some small Facebook groups, I found a corner room in an apartment owned by a third-year student who'd just graduated. Tiny room, peeling paint, but the door locked from the inside. That was all I needed. Financially, I accepted the truth. I'd survive on scholarships, a part-time job, and student loans. My mom was no longer an option. She'd made it clear. If you don't bring your sister with you, I'm not giving you a cent. But honestly, I didn't need it anymore. That kind of support, laced with threats and control, wasn't support at all. It was a noose. I started disconnecting from everything tied to my family. I stopped sharing my class schedule. Never gave mom the date of orientation. Never revealed my new address. I even created new private social media accounts, followed by only a handful of people I trusted. I lived two lives, one at home, silent, invisible, pretending to comply, and one outside, strategizing, preparing, quietly plotting my exit. I had learned how to move in silence, no trace, no noise. I wasn't the daughter hoping to be loved anymore. I was a survivor. I didn't say goodbye to my mom. I didn't say goodbye to Amber. I didn't need to, because deep down I knew I had never really existed in their eyes anyway. There was only one person I hugged tightly before I left that house, Lena, and she whispered in my ear, "Go, don't look back." I used to think the day I received my white coat would be the most memorable day of my life, in a good way. But as graduation approached, I realized if I didn't plan it carefully, it could easily become the day everything was ruined forever. I had spent all 4 years of college living in stealth mode, studying hard, working part-time, avoiding anything that could lead my family to me. But the white coat ceremony, there was no hiding from that. It was public. There'd be programs, photos, a live stream. Mom would find out, no question, and once she knew, Amber would know. And I couldn't let them show up and scream, "You don't deserve this," in front of hundreds of students and parents, so I planned it like a tactical mission. First, I posted the wrong ceremony location on Facebook, the place I knew mom and the extended family still stalked from afar. I wrote that it was happening at Hall B when in reality it was in Hall D, 2 buildings away. Next, I spoke to the event organizers, told them everything, gave photos of Mom and Amber. To my surprise, they understood. A security officer named Marcus promised he'd be at the side entrance early, eyes locked on the doors. I cut all contact 48 hours before the event. No texts, no emails, no going home. I even hid my white coat at Lena's place again, this time locked inside a suitcase under her bed. Nothing important stayed in my apartment. That morning, I got up at 5 a.m., not out of excitement, but out of pure alertness. I got dressed in the bathroom, locked the door from the inside, even propped a plastic chair against it. I called it my apartment, but it always felt more like a bunker. Lena drove me to campus in her car. Mine was parked elsewhere to avoid recognition. We parked in the back lot, snuck in through a side door, and slipped into the backstage area like we were sneaking into a concert. Marcus was already waiting at the side entrance. He gave me a thumbs up, code for all clear. I gave a small nod back. My hands were sweating, even in the cool air. Not because of the stage, but because I knew it would only take one mistake for Amber to blow everything up. Literally. I entered the waiting room where the other students were laughing, taking selfies, fixing their coats, buzzing with excitement, and I just sat in the corner, eyes glued to the door. Every set of footsteps made my heart skip. 30 minutes before the ceremony, my phone started vibrating non-stop. 12 texts from Mom, photos of her and Amber standing in front of Hall B. Confused, all dressed up, Amber in a bright red cocktail dress, like she was the one walking on stage. Mom's messages read, Where are you? This isn't funny. Amber wants to congratulate you. Don't be selfish. Come see your family, now. I turned off my phone. Lena texted from inside the main hall. Still no sign of them. You're safe. Then my name was called. I stood up. My hands trembled, not from fear anymore, but from something new. For the first time in years, I was about to do something for me without asking permission. I got in line. I walked on stage. And when that white coat was slipped over my shoulders, when I smiled into the camera, I didn't see Amber. I didn't see Mom. No glares, no signs, just me. Me, in the calmest moment of my entire life. I thought that once I made it through the graduation without anyone causing a scene, I could finally breathe. I was wrong. That night, I stayed over at Lena's apartment. She threw a little celebration, just close friends, cold beer, pizza, indie music, and soft string lights hanging in the kitchen. No one screamed at me, no one broke anything, no one mentioned Amber. For the first time in years, I felt free. I posted one photo on Instagram, me in my white coat. The caption, just 2 words, finally mine. No hashtags, no family tags. But within an hour, my mom had seen it. The next morning, I woke up to over 40 missed calls, more than 100 messages, half from my mom. The other half from numbers I didn't recognize, relatives, old classmates even, the landline from home. All of them had the same message. What are you doing? Amber cried all night. You can't just abandon your family. Don't be so selfish. At first I ignored it. I turned off notifications. I forced a smile for Lena and told myself, you're out. You made it. But it didn't end there. That afternoon, my mom called my part-time job at the pharmacy. She told my manager I was mentally unstable, that I had run away, and was showing signs of post-traumatic emotional distress. I was called into the office while I was sorting prescriptions. Steve, my manager, gave me a strange look. Your mom called a lot. I'm not sure if you're okay. Do you maybe need some time off? I froze, trying to stay calm. I'm fine. I'm just trying to live on my own. My mom can be a little controlling. He nodded, but his eyes still held doubt. Less than a week later, my landlord called. His voice was hesitant. Someone reported that you're bringing strangers into the unit, making noise late at night. I haven't seen anything myself, but if complaints keep coming in, I'll have to investigate. I went cold. I lived alone. No guests, no noise. The place was spotless. Someone was lying. Mom. I didn't need proof. I knew exactly who was behind it. I started documenting everything, screenshots of texts, recordings of strange calls. I reported potential harassment to the school. I called the pharmacy and said clearly, if my mother contacts you again, please record the call. I may need legal action. People around me started whispering that I was being overly intense, but they didn't understand. I'd lived in that state for years. The moment I allowed myself to breathe, Mom tried to choke me with something new, public shame. And Amber? She didn't stay quiet either. I found out she had created a TikTok account, sharing a teary, whispery video titled, When Your Adopted Sister Abandons You After Years of PTSD. She used old photos, cut and edited just right. Me smiling. Her in the corner, eyes red, looking broken. The video went viral, over 200,000 views. The comments poured in. How can a sister be so heartless? She threw her traumatized sibling away like trash. No one chooses their past. That woman is evil. I didn't respond. No rebuttal, no posts defending myself. I'd spent my entire youth being silent, and now I chose to stay that way. But in my mind, I was already planning my next move because with my mom, this was only the beginning. I used to believe Amber would destroy me, down to my last breath. I never imagined she'd be the one to warn me. It started with a piece of paper, a small note folded into fourths, slipped inside a nameless envelope in my apartment mailbox. At first, I thought it was spam, but the handwriting stopped me cold. Amber's handwriting. The first line read, "Mom is planning to come to your school." I thought I was hallucinating. The paper listed, step by step, everything Mom was preparing to do: contact student services, impersonate me to request withdrawal, even create a fake email to submit a leave of absence form. At the bottom, a single line: "I've already deleted a few emails she tried to send, but you should prepare more." I read it again and again and again. I couldn't make sense of it. The next day, I got a text from an unknown number. "Don't reply. But don't trust Mom anymore. I'm doing what I can." No signature, but I knew it was Amber. I started connecting the dots. Turns out Amber had been interfering. Emails my mother drafted. Many never made it to the school. False posts on student forums suddenly vanished. Even my landlord, the one who threatened to check my place, changed his tone, saying, "It was probably just a misunderstanding." And then, a few days later, Amber showed up. Not in my apartment, in a car. I spotted her in an old Honda parked across the street. Engine off, eyes locked on my window, no movement, no signals, just watching. The first time I saw her was 8 a.m. The last time that day, 11 p.m. I couldn't sleep. My mind spun with every worst-case scenario. Would she break in, drug the doorknob, pound on the door in the middle of the night? But Amber did nothing. She just sat there, day after day. Sometimes she'd walk to the convenience store down the block, buy a bottle of water, then return to her car. She never approached, never called, never screamed like she used to. By the third day, I couldn't take it anymore. I walked outside, straight to her car, knocked on the window. Amber rolled it down. Her eyes were red, dark circles underneath. We stared at each other for a few seconds. I couldn't even tell if I was angry, scared, or losing my mind. But then Amber said something, not an apology, not an excuse. Just this: "I know what I did to you." I froze. Not because of what she said, but because it was the first time in almost 9 years that she acknowledged it. No deflection, no gaslighting, just a sentence. "I know." Amber handed me a thick, heavy notebook. "I've written everything down. I'm actually in therapy now, 2 sessions a week. Not because Mom forced me. I signed up myself. I didn't want to take it, but I did. I didn't read it that night. I brought it home, placed it on the table, stared at it like it was a ticking bomb. That night, I didn't lose sleep out of fear. Not of Amber, but because I genuinely didn't know how to feel anymore. Angry, relieved, or just broken. I asked to meet with Mom, not because I forgave her, not because I was curious about her excuses, but because I was tired, tired of hiding, tired of being watched, tired of the fake calls, the threats to my reputation. I wanted it to end. I wanted, just once, to sit down like an adult and draw a clear line. I picked a small cafe near campus, lots of windows, crowded with security nearby. I arrived 15 minutes early, chose a seat near the exit, my back to the wall, eyes on the door. Right on time, Mom walked in. She didn't come alone. Amber followed behind her, head down. I almost stood up and walked out, but then Amber looked at me. There was no hatred in her eyes, no coldness, just something I'd never seen from her in 9 years. Silence, restraint. So I stayed seated. We sat in a row, 3 people. One small wooden table, 3 untouched drinks. Mom spoke first. As always, her voice sweet as syrup. I just want us to be a family again. I don't understand why you've cut us off. Amber, she's been trying, but you've been so cold. I didn't respond. Instead, I pulled out my phone, scrolled to a folder of screenshots. I placed it on the table, screen facing Mom, texts she sent to relatives, emails to the school, messages to my landlord, fabricated stories, false accusations, attempts to impersonate me. Mom froze, then turned sharply to Amber. What did you do? Amber didn't flinch. I told you, I wouldn't let you hurt her anymore. The air went still. I looked at my mother. No anger, just exhaustion. I'm here to say 3 things, I said. 1. No one in this family is allowed to interfere in my personal life again. 2. If anyone contacts my school, my job, or my landlord again, I will take legal action. 3. If you respect these boundaries, maybe I'll consider showing up to a family event someday. If not, this is the last time you'll ever see me. Mom stared at me, mouth open, no words. Amber looked at me too, strangely calm. I've moved out, she said quietly. I'm living at a support center for adults with trauma. Mom doesn't control me anymore. And I know you're not responsible for fixing my life. I wanted to cry, but I wouldn't let myself. Mom finally spoke, her voice softer now. I thought if you two were near each other, you could help Amber get better. I didn't mean to hurt you. Amber cut her off. You didn't mean to, but you did, for years. We sat in silence for nearly a full minute. Then I stood up, grabbed my bag, looked Mom in the eye. I don't need your apology, but I do need you to disappear from my life, at least for a while. Amber stood with me. Just before I turned to leave, she reached out and placed a small envelope in my hand. It's money I saved from my part-time job, enough to cover your rent this month, for the shifts you missed because of Mom. I wanted to refuse, but deep down I knew this wasn't just money. It was the first time Amber had ever tried to fix something she broke. I nodded, didn't say thank you. But somewhere inside me, something let go. I walked out of the cafe with a strange feeling. Not exactly relief. Not quite anger either. It felt like the air after a storm. Things weren't calm, but at least I was still standing. Amber walked in the opposite direction. She didn't ask to come with me. She didn't reach out. Mom stayed behind in the cafe. I didn't look back. I didn't need to. For the first time, I wasn't the child caught between someone else's tears and someone else's silence. I was me, and I had survived. The next day, I sent Mom an email. Cold, clear. No, dear Mom. No, love Rachel. Just 3 bullet points. No calls, no texts, no emails without my permission. No contact with my school, job, or any of my personal affiliations under any circumstance. Do not use Amber as an excuse to pull me back into the same cycle. I ended the message with one line. If these conditions are respected, I may consider showing up at Christmas. If not, I'll pursue legal action. It wasn't a threat, it was a fact. I had already spoken with a lawyer, collected everything: screenshots, voice recordings, handwritten notes, email logs. If Mom crossed the line again, I would file for a restraining order without hesitation. As for Amber, she kept her word. After that day, she didn't sit outside my building anymore. No more silent stares through windows. She sent me a short message a few days later. I moved to a support center in Houston. Therapy's 3 times a week. There's a little garden here. Planting stuff helps me break less. I read it, but I didn't reply, not because I didn't care, but because what could I say that would balance out 8 years of damage? One text can't fix that. I went back to school, to morning anatomy labs, to textbooks and tightly packed schedules. I picked up shifts at the pharmacy again, this time night shifts. Quiet. Less foot traffic. No one asking, "So, what do your parents do?" I changed where I parked every day, changed the route home, not out of fear, just habit. Caution had become instinct, survival, second nature. I lived simply: study, work, sleep, ramen noodles, secondhand clothes, patching up my own white coat when it tore. But in that simplicity, I felt free. No more pounding on my door in the middle of the night. No more hiding my report cards. No more shrinking myself to be just smart enough, but not too smart, so I wouldn't hurt someone's feelings. It was a small step, but it was mine. And I made a promise to myself: no one walks this road but me, and no one gets to trample it again. I thought after everything, after setting boundaries, going silent, disappearing from the family group chat, Mom would finally give up. I forgot one thing: my mother never gives up. She doesn't step back, she just steps back to gain momentum. The peace lasted exactly 2 weeks. Then, on a Tuesday morning, on my way to anatomy class, I saw them. Outside the main medical building, where students moved in and out like clockwork, stood my mother, Aunt Linda, 2 distant relatives I hadn't seen since a funeral 3 years ago, and Amber, lined up, holding signs, not anti-war signs, not environmental protests, not inflation or politics. No, this protest was personal. It was about me. I froze on the sidewalk, cold sweat on my back. My classmates started whispering. One sign read, "Family deserves a second chance." Another, bigger one, "Rachel abandoned her sister with PTSD." And the worst of them all, held high by my mother, "Shame on Rachel, blood doesn't walk away." I wanted to disappear. I turned and ran behind the building, calling campus security. I had warned them weeks ago, just in case. I never actually thought I'd need it. As I panted into the phone, "They're outside the main hall." The voice on the other end didn't sound surprised, just tired. "We'll send someone right away, Miss Rachel." I sank down against the wall, heart pounding. My phone wouldn't stop buzzing. Texts from classmates. "Are you okay? What's going on? Is that shame sign actually about you?" I felt like a criminal plastered across the front page. No one asked if it was true. No one waited for my side of the story. Just angry faces, raised signs, and button-up shirts outside a lecture hall. That was enough. I didn't go to class that day. I went straight home, closed the door, turned off the lights, shut off my phone. Amber called. I didn't want to pick up, but I did. Her voice was raspy, exhausted. "I'm sorry. I didn't know Mom would bring the whole family. I thought it was just a one-on-one." I cut her off. "There's no such thing as Mom doing something on her own. You know that." Silence. Then she sighed. You need to disappear for a few days. They're planning to show up every day. Mom thinks the more pressure she puts on you, the more likely you'll remember family. I laughed bitterly. She doesn't realize the more she does this, the more I know I was right to leave. Amber said she'd try to pull them back somehow, but she didn't know if she still had any influence left. I didn't blame her. I was just tired. For the next 3 days, I didn't go to class. I emailed my professors citing a personal emergency. On the fourth day, I returned wearing a baseball cap, a mask, and sunglasses, like someone on a wanted list, not because I was ashamed of what I did, but because I knew most people didn't care about truth. They just wanted something to gossip about. That night, I printed my own sign. In bold black letters, it said, "I'm not sorry for surviving." I didn't carry it outside. I taped it to my fridge, right where I'd see it every morning, to remind myself that I wasn't crazy, I wasn't ungrateful, I wasn't a traitor, I was a survivor, and survival is never something to be ashamed of. Things didn't magically change after the protest. No one apologized right away. There were no teary reunions, no miracles, but eventually it quieted down. The school issued a new policy banning all disruptive behavior on campus. A week later, my mom and the rest of the family stopped showing up. I don't know if they gave up out of exhaustion, fear, or if Amber did something behind the scenes. I didn't ask. All I knew was I was alone again, and that was enough. I returned to class, still keeping my distance. Slowly, a few of my closest classmates started to understand. One of them said, "You don't have to tell us everything, but I can see you're strong." I smiled, not the polite kind, but a real smile, my first in months. A few weeks later, I received a package, no return address. Inside was a simple leather bracelet and a note. "You don't have to forgive me. I just hope you know I'm trying not to hurt anyone anymore. I'm still in therapy. I still remember you were the first light I ever saw, but I didn't know how to keep it. I'm learning." I folded the note, didn't cry, didn't wear the bracelet. I placed it in a drawer next to another letter, one from my mother sent months later. No threats, no blame, just a quiet admission of guilt, short but honest. I haven't replied. Maybe I never will. But I kept both letters, proof that people can change when they want to. That Christmas, I didn't go home. I stayed in my tiny apartment with Lena. We baked cookies and studied for finals. On New Year's Eve, we went out to watch fireworks. It was freezing, but for the first time, I didn't feel alone. I reposted the photo from my white coat ceremony. No face hidden, no comments turned off, no private settings, just one caption: "I didn't let pain choose my path." Today, I'm a second-year med student, leading first years on campus tours. Still me, white coat, ponytail, overbooked schedule, but different. I no longer hide my achievements. I no longer shrink under someone's gaze. I no longer apologize for existing. I've come to understand some people who are hurt will hurt others, but some, like me, learn how to patch themselves back together, one piece at a time, and keep walking. Sometimes you can't save someone by sacrificing yourself. Love doesn't mean staying silent so someone else can scream. And family, if it can't keep you safe, is no longer a place you owe your return. You have the right to walk away. You have the right to succeed. You have the right to be happy without apologizing for it. And that isn't selfish, that's survival.